Hey guys, this is Grant Evans, your favorite Utah realtor. Welcome to the closing table. Today we have one of our favorite guests, the Catmull family, Shawn and Stacy Catmull of the Lending Co. As you guys know or might be familiar, they are wonderful people. They have no short of achievements. If we just talked about their achievements, you can look at a previous episode, or we could just talk for another hour talking about how awesome you guys are.
About that, but thank you.
Yeah,
it's all about what we're doing in the future.
That's right.
Not in the past.
Yeah, we're going to talk today about how to be a responsible borrower. What I really want to title this is how not to mess things up financially in your life. In a more professional way of saying that. So let me just give a story. We'll just start with that. So I had some clients a few years ago that they had to sell their house because they had so much debt, car debt, credit card debt, just a lot of consumer debt, plus their mortgage. They just felt like they were scraping by. So we sell their house. And then about a year later, they come to me and they're like, hey, we want to buy. And they come to me with a brand new 2020 Chevy Tahoe, probably $80,000. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? You guys are trying to buy a house and yet you put money towards an $80,000 Tahoe when now you can't even buy anything.
Yeah.
It's just, it's almost like debt, like consumer debt is like an addiction that people just can't get rid of. So I guess we'll just go off that. Have you guys ever seen, I mean, you guys have obviously not seen that, right? So.
Yeah. You know, it is interesting because there are a couple of things that are like the two deal breakers when it comes to debt. First is student loans. People don't, well, I wouldn't even say that's in first place, but I'll talk about it first. Student loans, people don't realize that when you have $60,000 or $70,000 in student loans, that stays with you forever and it counts against you for a mortgage payment. And so like we have a cute couple right now, they have $700 a month in student loans. Like that's a huge debt that they have to pay.
So you're saying $700 goes against their debt to income?
Yes, it goes against their debt to income, which is awesome if you have a career that you've used and these guys are making great money and they can still afford a house. But if you have just gotten your student loans and you're not even making what your student loans are a year, it really can hurt you. But actually the very first thing that we see that kills a qualification is a car payment. You know?
I've seen that a lot too, a lot of times. But going back to the student loan debt, I've got a family in my neighborhood that he is a resident. No, he's looking to get matched for residency.
Yeah.
And I just think they talk about all the time, like, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to afford a house. And, you know, they have that conversation and I think they will. I mean, he's going to be a doctor and
there are
he's going to make money, but like, I can't imagine having a debt of like $700 a month. Like,
there are special programs for doctors because they know they're going to make money in the future. And so there are loan programs specifically for doctors that don't calculate in their student debt.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's nice.
I know. So we'll have to talk to them when they're ready.
But
it's not as scary as they think.
But I think bringing this up is important. I mean, if you have a specific thing you're doing in college, you're getting this debt and you know, hey, I'm going to make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. That's different, right? Then, hey, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to pay all my expenses, and I hope to just have a job. And what we're seeing is a lot of people going to school, having $60,000, $70,000 worth of debt, and they're still working $15 an hour. Graduate.
Yeah. That's hard because like that kind of debt, that debt probably wouldn't be accumulated like BYU or Utah Valley. But it's somewhere like maybe Stanford and Harvard for sure.
But it's actually just regular school because they're not just paying for their school.
Expenses.
They pay for their expenses too. So you find a lot of people they live off of their student loans. They're not working. They live off of their student loans. And then one thing that we see too is people get into financial trouble. And so they go back to school so that they can get student loans. And then
so they can get a higher paying job. And yet it's this cycle of debt.
But
they're deferring the debt.
Never get out
of. They're deferring the debt.
They're deferring the debt. Yeah.
It's like,
and they don't ever get the higher paying job.
This is a lot like what Dave Ramsey talks about with like stay out of debt. Right.
Yeah. Correct.
But he also says save up for a 20% down payment, which I don't know if that's feasibly possible for a first time home buyer.
And it's really not. The thing is,
somebody who has $700 in debt.
I can talk to you about that right now because like I had a couple who 3 years ago, they qualified for a mortgage and they had their 5% down payment, 3% down payment, And they were like, no, we're just going to save.
And they were making good money.
They were making good money. They could totally afford a house. They're like, no, we're going to save to 20%. Well, guess what? 3 years later, they still don't have their 20%. And had they bought a house, they would have had $100,000 to $200,000 in equity.
And the only thing, like, people talk
work
so much about, like, mortgage insurance, like, oh, I'm saving up 20% so I don't pay mortgage insurance. Like, mortgage insurance is like $100 to $200 extra a month.
It's really not.
So you're
that much.
like, if you're buying a $400,000 home, you're saving up $80,000 to save an extra $100 to $200 a month. When you can just refinance and take the mortgage insurance off later.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I have a client that their mortgage insurance, they're putting down 15%. Their mortgage insurance is $19.
But is it worth putting down that 15% when you just put down 10 and then it turns mortgage insurance into maybe?
But that's their decision. But I think when it really comes down to it, let's just come down to, hey, everyone has a mortgage, and if there's an opportunity, if you can afford it, buy it.
Get into the
right
market.
Now. Yeah, get into the market. Let the market grow. You cannot grow your money faster than the market is growing.
And long-term, real estate is always a secure investment.
Yeah, long-term especially the stock market not being great right now too.
Right.
And crypto. But I guess what advice would you give, especially to first-time home buyers, that mortgage is a big deal to them? Like, we have our clients that are so worried about their payment, but really every first-time home buyer I've worked with ends up being okay. Like, they get nervous about the payment. They're kind of on that fence of, like, it's comfortable, it's not really, but it works out. It always works out. They adjust. They either end up making more money. They're and it's not in your best interest or your servicers to have the first-time home buyer be really struggling.
Yeah, I think advice to first-time homebuyers, we work a lot with first-time homebuyers. Our kids are home buying age. And so when we work with our first-time homebuyers, we actually think of them as our kids. And so the most important thing, I think, is not to get in over your head. Just because you can qualify for a mortgage doesn't mean necessarily that that's the mortgage that you can have. With some mortgages, we can go all the way up to 56% debt to income. Right? So if you're really at 56% debt to income and you're getting into that home, and that's your gross income. So what that means is that your house payment and all of your monthly payments are 56% of your gross income. So that's not even the income that you're taking home. So you have to be really, really careful not to push your limits, not to get in over your head. And honestly, like, we don't usually we usually have a really long, good conversation with borrowers if they are first-time home buyers and they are pushing those ratios, because it's just not good for them. So we want to make sure that they understand that there are additional expenses to owning a home that you don't know about right now. So that's one of the pieces of advice that I would give to first-time home buyers for sure, is that make sure that you can afford that home that you're going to be buying.
I mean, you still got your mortgage payment, you still got utilities.
Yeah, you have to pay for utilities.
I think a lot of people forget, like,
break.
I got to pay for gas, I got to pay for internet, and that's an extra $200 $300 a month.
Yeah, it can add up for sure.
Taxes.
Yeah, well, that is included in your.
Well, I mean, like your income taxes too.
But income taxes.
But there's so many expenses like the gym, your cell phone. All
your 10 streaming
subscriptions.
Yeah. And we're not even putting those in.
Yeah, that's not even a part of the debt to income. Yeah.
So just be really careful that you're buying what you can qualify for. The other advice I would give to first-time home buyers is that your first house is not going to be your dream house. Your first house is a stepping stone to your dream house, right? So whatever it is, I mean, we really encourage people, however you're getting into the market, get into that real estate market. Like, it's really important that you do that. But you don't plan on living in that home forever. Usually what people do is, they start like with a condo or a townhouse and, or a fixer upper. And then they are able to earn equity in that. And then they put it into their next home and then into their next home. But maybe it's like 2 or 3 homes in that you're finally in the home that you want to live in. So don't have too high of expectations, because as prices have gone up, what you can get for the money has gone down. And so you have to be just really smart about where you start, but just get started somewhere, even if it's a rundown condo in a town that you don't really like just get into the market, because even those little rundown condos eventually are going to give you some equity. And instead of paying rent, you're building your future. And
so you're saying don't be picky.
Yeah, don't be
don't be picky.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
want to
can
feel,
be picky to
you
an
want to
extent,
feel
I
good
think.
about it.
Get what you want.
Yeah.
Don't be picky.
But you don't have, but you don't have to be as picky.
Don't settle either. Like still, like you're spending hundreds of $1,000s in a loan format, but like
Right.
you don't. It doesn't have to have a pool. It doesn't.
It doesn't have to have a big yard.
It doesn't have to have a big.
Where are you living right now?
Yeah.
You're living in an apartment usually, right?
Yeah.
So what if you just lived in the same place, but you were actually making a deposit into yourself instead of paying your landlords?
I feel like for every first-time homebuyer, it needs to be like a leap of faith to buy something, because they get in. Like, it's this cycle of debt that we're talking about. They get this cycle. They get in this comfort zone of being in a rental, and they think, I never want to leave this because I'm scared to branch out.
Yeah.
Like still, like you don't want to have like 56% or 53% of your income
Right.
going towards.
You want to be
mortgage.
careful.
You want to be careful, but nobody grows by taking the safe route.
Right.
You know.
It's true. And I think the third thing that I would caution first-time home buyers about is down payment assistance programs. So down payment assistance is an awesome program for the right borrower, because there are just people who they're just not going to be able to save money for a down payment. But you have to understand that with the majority of down payment assistance programs, there are a few actual legit grant programs out there. But with the majority of them, when you get into the home, you are upside down in the home. So that means that you owe more on the home than the home is worth. And so if you get into financial trouble, or like I had a couple that they were getting a divorce, and things happen and they can't sell their house, they can't refinance their house, and then they're stuck with that higher interest rate payment because that comes along with the down payment assistance program. And so you have to be there's a lot of people who are out there just saying, just do down payment assistance, no down. But you kind of have to think, if I can't afford to save a down payment, maybe I can't afford to buy a house.
Well, now you're going back to the
because
Dave
you don't have
Ramsey.
any extra money.
Well, I
you need to save
think there's a
little bit of
place for down payment assistance.
Definitely.
Like if it's a seller's market and we see, year over year growth,
Right.
it makes sense. But in a market like now where like things are kind of naturally either like kind of flatlining or going down payment assistance probably isn't the best option. Like all those people in Eagle Mountain or Saratoga Springs that have USDA loans, I mean, it's hard to get a zero down right now, I feel like, just because it's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, they got equity because they bought 3 to 5 years ago.
Right. So you just have to be careful with them, and you have to make sure that you're working with a loan officer and a realtor who really care about you and don't just care that you get into a home. Yeah. Because a lot of times, there are realtors who sell no down payment because they just want a deal.
Yeah.
And they do work beautifully for some borrowers, but for some borrowers, they're not the right option. If you can wait a couple of months and save a down payment, it's always better to put a down payment down and to give yourself a little bit of space for the equity.
I even think right now too. Sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a option. It's one option, right? And it fits in markets that are a particular way, and that is an option. But I think exploring all the options and giving all those options to individuals and say, hey, listen, this is how it could affect you down the road. Give them the opportunity to make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I think of the first thing, like with market, if you have zero down or even just low down, and then you're in a position where you have to sell the home because you're moving. Hopefully you don't have to sell if you're in this position, but I think of like, let's say condos, for example, they were $400,000 at the beginning of the year. Like I had a buddy who bought one in Harriman for $375. Now the comps in his complex are going for like $345.
Oh, wow.
And so if you were to sell tomorrow, it might be a short sale.
Yeah.
But it's best, like if anybody's listening to this and thinking, should I sell or should I hold it? Hold it.
Yeah.
I even think it's best, like you guys, like tell me if you disagree with this or not. If I've got a job transfer going from Utah to Texas, and it would be a potential short sale if I sold my condo because I've only owned it for 3 months, I wouldn't sell it. I would hold on to it and then rent in Dallas or wherever.
Yeah.
Just having that as a rental, and then you can rent in your next place. Unless you can afford a house in Dallas, then do that.
Right.
If you can't afford to buy a second home.
No, I think that's
did you
good
just
advice.
say don't buy a house with me?
This is in Dallas.
Just a minute
I can't
here.
help you. I mean, I can refer people.
Yeah.
I mean, in Utah,
but
you're not
I
gonna
think
have,
great advice, though.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
You have to just really do what is best for you. But I think the big thing is just understanding. I mean, number one, like definitely we're telling you, get in the market. Like if you have an opportunity and you can afford it, get in the market. And even with interest rates being higher right now, it's a great time to buy a house, right? But also you have to just be careful that you're not pushing your limits, because the big key there is if you can afford it, then get into the market. But if you can't afford it, then a really great thing to do is actually to make a plan. There's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I can't afford it right now, so we don't need to talk right now. No, actually, that's exactly when we need to talk. We need to talk now so that we can make a plan so that you can know what you need to do in order to be able to afford it. So don't worry about calling a loan officer and talking to them about what your situation is, because if they're a good loan officer, they don't care that you're ready to buy now, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. They'll spend the time to go over a plan with you. But if you can find somebody to help you make a plan, then your chances of buying are far greater than if you just say, no, I'm just going to wait, and I'll talk to somebody when I'm ready.
That's some really good advice, because especially if you've got, like, let's say a couple's recently married, like, yeah, we want to buy a house, but it'll be like in 2 years.
Yeah. Perfect time to talk to a loan officer.
Yeah. Well, like, you just sit down and say, okay, my ideal house in the current market is $400,000. What does that need to look like for me in order to buy it? How much do I need to put down and stuff like that? Now you've got a 2-year goal.
Right.
Of like, okay, granted, the market will be totally different in 2 years, but at least gives you like a mindset and a vision of where to go. So I wish we could talk more, because this is go ahead, Shawn.
One last thing.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about some things that could really blow up deals?
Well, which is why you should talk to somebody 2 years out.
Correct.
Yeah.
But right now there's a challenge where people are going into the market doing their own businesses, 1099. They're going from a W-2 to a 1099 or a combination of the two. That right there is going to blow up your deal.
Yeah.
People have no
Keep
idea.
your
It's like,
job.
well, hey, how can I qualify for a loan? I just started my new business last month.
Or I was W-2, but I just went to 1099 at the same job.
Yeah.
It's like,
hey, I want to buy now.
It's like, we got to wait for a year. Like, can you go back W-2?
That right there is going to blow your deal up.
But that's just one example why it's important to plan ahead so that you know that, oh, I need to be in my W-2 job. Or if I want to start a business, I need to do it now. And this is what I need to do for tax write-offs. But more and more, the new generation they're entrepreneurs, and they're doing their own things. And that's something that we see
it's a wrecking ball
all the time.
It is a wrecking ball.
And they're so disappointed.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they're making good money.
Great money.
Like, hey, it's totally legit. It's like, hey, you left a job making $10,000 a month, and now you're going to go make $20,000, $30,000 a month and attack the American dream. And that's amazing, But
you can't buy a house.
You can't buy a house for a while.
Yeah. Got to have that 2-year work history.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I think if anybody's looking to just get into something now, don't quit your job.
Yeah.
Don't start that Etsy company that you've been wanting to do for the last 5 years. You should have done that 5 years ago.
Correct. But start that conversation.
Yeah.
Make a plan.
Talk to somebody, make a plan.
Yeah. Don't blow up deals.
That's
people who are thinking of
Don't blow up your deal.
People who are thinking of taking out a loan on a house, be financially frugal, be smart.
Buy your house before you buy your dream car.
Yes.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
Yes. The 1963 Ford Mustang can wait.
That's right.
So.
Don't take those student loans if you don't need them. Just because they're offering them doesn't mean you should take them.
FAFSA first. Even then, don't take the federal loan.
That's right.
Either.
Don't do it.
Well, we are out of time. Thanks so much, you guys, for coming. How can people reach out to you?
You can reach us. The best way is through probably email. Just STACY, Stacy at thelendingco.com or Shawn at thelendingco.com.
SHAWN.
Yep.
Traditional spelling.
Yeah, traditional spelling.
And then where can people follow you on social media?
You can follow us on social media at Team Catmull Home Loans on Instagram, or you can find us just under our names, Shawn Catmull or Stacy Catmull on Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys, for watching the closing table. Feel free to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.